and I think we are in a couple of seconds. Are you tired? How are you feeling?
Just feeling fine. Thank you kindly.
I've put on a tie and a shirt, but underneath I'm in slippers. So, the Croatian tie.
Yes.
Very good. I like that. Okay. As I can see, we are live. So, I would like to, as I said, I will greet our viewers. So, evo, pozdrav svima koji nas gledate uživo preko YouTube-a. I think, Dale, that they already saw your tie. So, dobrodošli u Chester Shock, prvi festival digitalni posvećen Chestertonu. U zamjenu za Chest Fest koji smo nažalost morali odgoditi zbog koronavirusa. Evo, tako da smo umjesto toga odlučili organizirati digitalni festival ili Chester Shock da vas preko ovih digitalnih valova, preko struje, preko mreže, da vas malo potresemo i probudimo za onaj pravi istinski život koji i sada ga možemo živjeti, a i nakon korone još više. Chester Shock festival, znači u zamjenu za Chest Fest, prije svega je osmišljen kao jedno buđenje za novi život, za još veće življenje života, za još jednu veću predanost, a ujedno da se upoznamo s Chestertonom, njegovom mišlju, odnosno s njegovim duhom. Zbog toga bi se prije svega zahvalio našim sponzorima, to su benediktinci iz Nursije s njihovim pivom Nursija, koji možete naručiti preko njihove web stranice koju smo podijelili na našoj stranici Gilbert.hr. I to je baš u česterijanskom duhu, jer Chesterton je volio pivo i volio male stvari koje proizvode, pogotovo mali obrti, male firme i još tome ako je u pitanju pravo originalno redovničko pivo. Imat ćemo u Chester Shocku, znači kroz cijeli svibanj, znači svaki četvrtak u svibnju, osim 18. petak u ponedjeljak, znači imamo 5 predavanja. Danas imamo prvo predavanje i naš predavač prvi je Daleom Ahlquist, doktor Daleom Ahlquist. Ne znam kako bi to čovjeka predstavio, ne? Osim da se radi o izvanrednom čovjeku, vrhunskom misliocu, odličnom poznavatelju, vjerojatno najboljem na svijetu Chestertona, autoru njegdje 4-5 knjiga, što o Chestertonu, što o filozofiji, odnosno dijela apologetike. Domaćin emisije Apostol zdravog razuma na IWTN-u, a koju ujedno možete gledati na Laudato televiziji. Čovjek koji širi stvarno dobar duh, zdrav duh i koji jako dobro poznaje Chestertona i zna što je pravi duh radosti i pravi duh života. Osim ovog uvoda na hrvatskom, sad ćemo razgovarati na engleskom, tako da nas i autor razumije o čemu govorimo, pa sad ću ga i pozdraviti. So, hello Dale.
Hello Nikola.
Sorry for this brief, long introduction.
I understood everything you said. You said that G.K. Chesterton was a big, fat, happy man.
Exactly.
Or maybe you said Daleom Ahlquist is a big, fat, happy man.
No, I said that Chesterton was a big, fat man.
Oh, okay.
I said only great things about you. Nothing small or humble, just great things. So how is everything in the United States?
Well, we share the pain of the rest of the world as we are shut down and operating at half strength, but we are very active online, and we are very busy, and good things are happening. So we have nothing to complain about except everything else.
Very good. I'm glad that, and I would like to thank you that you're with us. As you said, that we share with each other this fate of the world, not just in this time of sickness or this troubled and uncommon times, but also in our Catholic faith, in everything good that we do by and through Chesterton for the world. So I would like to thank you, and it's a great thing that we are together in this.
Amen.
So what do you have today for us? We had an idea to have your lecture talk for about 20 minutes. Then we'll have a conversation between two of us, and then we'll have Q's and A's. We have on our YouTube. Our viewers can send questions to you. So after that, after the conversation, we'll have Q's and A's. So what do you have for us today?
Well,
does life have meaning after Corona?
Yeah, does life have meaning? Is there life after Corona? I should start by saying that there has never been a plague in human history that killed everyone.
That's optimistic.
So there is that. We should, some of us will survive. Okay, there's that. But even if this virus, even if this plague does kill everyone, there's still meaning after Corona, because that would be the beginning of eternal life. And I would hope that everyone is preparing for that, that everyone is looking, at the state of their own souls when their lives are under a threat. So that's an important thing to point out. And maybe that's the first good thing that has come out of a threat to everyone's life, is that they look at the meaning of their life a little more closely. And we can hope that that is one of the good results. But as to the question, is the real challenge of what happens after the plague and what will be the aftermath of this, I'd like to talk about not England and not America and not Croatia, but India, of course. I'm going to talk about India. I'm going to read a passage from a Chesterton essay in the Illustrated London News from September of 1909. I'm just going to read a paragraph, okay? He's talking about India and the Indian people. And he says, suppose an Indian said, I heartily wish India had always been free from white men and all their works. Every system has its sins. We prefer our own. There would have been dynastic wars, but I prefer dying in battle to dying in hospital. There would have been despotism, but I prefer one king whom I hardly ever see to 100 kings regulating my diet and my children. There would have been pestilence, but I would sooner die of the plague than die of toil and vexation in order to avoid the plague. There would have been religious differences, dangerous to public peace, but I think religion more important than peace. Life is very short. A man must live somehow and die somewhere. The amount of bodily comfort a peasant gets under your best republic is not much more than mine. If you do not like our sort of spiritual comfort, we never asked you to. Go, leave us with it. Suppose an Indian said that. I should call him an Indian nationalist, or at least an authentic Indian. And I think it would be very hard to answer him. Now, Chesterton wrote this, as I said, in 1909, when India was still considered the jewel in the crown. It was the height of the British Empire, and G.K. Chesterton was no fan of empire. He considered himself a little Englander, and he was loyal to his own country, but he was a critic of his country ruling other countries. And one of the people who read this column in the Illustrated London News was a young Indian lawyer named Gandhi. And as Chesterton would do, as he has done with so many of us across the years, he expressed Gandhi's own thoughts better than Gandhi could have expressed them himself. And how many times have we been thunderstruck by something that we've read by G.K. Chesterton? Thunderstruck, struck by thunder. And one of Gandhi's biographers uses that word to describe Gandhi's reaction to reading that column in the Illustrated London News. He was thunderstruck. His life at that moment changed forever. He translated the essay into his native language, which is called Gujarati. And then he used the idea as the basis of his book, Hind Swaraj, which he starts to argue for the idea of Indians ruling themselves, an idea otherwise known as democracy. In the decades that followed, he would lead a historic movement to cast off the British rule of India. And it meant millions of people embracing the same idea as articulated by Gandhi. And they had a difficult time, and it was very demanding, but they were willing to give up the comforts that the empire may have provided for the freedom to provide their own comforts for themselves, to rule themselves. And the amazing thing is that the independence of India was achieved by a huge mass of people simply disobeying laws that could not be enforced if everyone disobeyed them. And they couldn't be enforced on a practical scale because millions of people would not obey them, but they also could not be enforced on a theoretical scale because they were unjust laws. And the British, to their great credit, finally walked away. Now, when I read this paragraph to you just now, I hope that the line that struck you the most, that jumped out, was when Chesterton puts it in the words of this imaginary Indian: "I would rather die of the plague than die of toil and vexation in order to avoid the plague."
Yes.
Here in the United States, most of us have behaved pretty well. We've been good citizens during the corona crisis. We've followed the rules. We've kept ourselves safe and separate from everyone else, as we've been told to do. And the plague, in the meantime, the corona has just taken over everything. It's especially taken over the news. That's the only thing you can read about or hear about in the news. We've watched big government and big business declare their alliance in running everything. We've seen small local government just being stifled, and we've seen small businesses being crushed and closed. Public places have been closed. Schools have been closed, and churches have been closed. So people have basically lost control of their bodies, their minds, and their souls. Because when you close public places and close schools and close churches, that's body, mind, and soul. And that starts to get a little bit worrisome, right?
Yes, a little bit.
And the goal you know, the stated goal of the government has always been, we want to slow the spread of the disease. But that's a goal that can never, ever be achieved, slowing the spread. When do you decide that you have slowed the spread? And that's why the finish line keeps moving. We don't know when we have gotten there to slowing the spread. And so it's because of this that, you know, we've had to cancel our conference that Ivo and Nikola were invited to in Chicago. And we've had to, you know, make other changes. And we've accommodated by the admitted wonder of, you know, the miracle of the computer communication, the great wonders of electricity that Nikola Tesla developed for us. Okay, and we look at history. We see other plagues have passed. We believe this one will too. But we have to be very concerned about how the structure of our society will be affected by the way we have behaved during this crisis. We watched how there was greater control of our lives. Our lives were under the control of someone else because of this. And will those controls still be in place after the crisis? That is the thing we have to be concerned about. Yes, we can act differently during a crisis. Yes, we can limit ourselves during a crisis. We can give up certain freedoms during a crisis. But when the crisis has passed, will those freedoms be restored to us? That is a great concern. At a certain point, if the government uses health as the excuse for everything, we've created an unhealthy society. As Chesterton says, the worship of health leads to something unhealthy. And he also says, you know, the problem with health care is that it treats everyone as if they're sick all the time. It treats everyone as if they are a patient, always under the health care system. That's a great danger. He says health has nothing to do with care. Health has to do with carelessness, the idea of a certain amount of freedom that goes with health. He gives us this wonderful line in this essay I just read. When are we going to decide that it's better to risk dying of the plague than choosing to die of the toil and vexation of avoiding the plague? When do we decide we have to possibly disturb the peace? And it's better to die in battle than to die in the hospital. At a certain point, we have to make that decision. G.K. Chesterton imagined an Indian, a theoretical, imaginary Indian, saying, life is very short and I do not want to live this way in my short life. And a real Indian read those words and made those words his own, and he changed history. That's a source of inspiration. Now, what are some possible good things? Well, let's just consider this. One of the things that did happen as a result of the crisis was that people had to go home. They had to go back to their homes. And as Chesterton argues, the home is really the most basic and fundamental place in a society. That's where life is lived at its most basic and fundamental scale. That's where the family lives. And the family is the basic unit of society, not the individual and not the community and not a special interest group, the family. And it is the place where life and death really occurs and everything in between. That's where the place of creativity and spiritual development and love and all of the great conversations, they take place within the home. And our society, the last several,
all great wars.
Yeah, well, right. Yeah, all of our societies are about defending the home, but yet, our philosophy in the modern world has been that life exists outside the home, and that the home is basically where you sleep. That's where you rest from the. And it should be just the opposite. That life exists in the home, and the rest of the world is less important. That's the smaller place. Chesterton's great paradox: the inside of the house is larger than the outside of the house. I hope that the result of the lifestyle changes that people have had to make during the crisis might be that they realize home is better than other places. That could be a good thing. What's the greatest danger, though? For me, the greatest danger of the crisis is that people have become used to not going to church. Here in America, and I know you had the amazing paradox of the cathedral collapsing when no one was in it. I mean, that was great providence from God.
Several churches, actually.
Yeah, and that's great providence. But at a certain point, we can't get used to not going to church. We can't get used to just watching the sacraments on a screen instead of truly partaking and receiving the sacraments. And I'm very much fear that people will become lazy and passive and decide this is much easier to stay home instead of going to mass, instead of going to confession, instead of actively worshiping God, because that's the part of community that we really need. The real community is the church, and we need to experience firsthand the brotherhood that's in the Lord, in God, and the danger is that we will feel passive, and we will put up with an evil rather than working to defeat it. And that kind of passivity it's one of the seven deadly sins. It's the sin of sloth, and every sin is a result of selfishness, and it becomes very selfish to just not go to church. Okay, that becomes selfish, and so that's the great concern about life after the crisis. I can only give us a Chestertonian exhortation, which is that we have to take the faith seriously, and we have to not take ourselves seriously. There you go. And I'm wearing a tie from Croatia. All right.
Okay. Thank you, Dale. I don't know if you've noticed, but you have been talking with Gilbert Keitha Chesterton, if you can see on your Zoom screen.
Oh, I can't see that. That's good.
You can see because you don't have the names displayed. I have the names displayed, and you're talking with Gilbert Keitha Chesterton. So
great.
That's a great paradox.
Good. Good.
Okay, thank you for your exhortation. I think that couple of things, couple of points I would like to stress out. You've mentioned to be thunderstruck by Chesterton. I think that's everybody who read Chesterton or took him seriously in a way, or didn't expect anything, that they were struck by a lightning, And I think that he has this power to really wake up people, and to really show them what life is all about, and what's the best thing in life, And I think that everybody should read Chesterton every day for the rest of their life, and so on. My question is for you. I have some kind of a feeling that people won't understand correctly this Chesterton's view on health, or on healthcare, or worship of health, or this we can call it like some culture of sterilization.
Yes.
So can you explain it a little bit more? What's his view on health, and what does he mean by worship of health?
Yeah, it's G.K. Chesterton trying to get us to realize what is most important. What is most important? And if we only think about the health of our bodies as the most important thing, then we are neglecting the health of our minds. We sacrifice the health of our mind to the health of our body, and we sacrifice the health of our soul to the health of our body. And if a society is run by only protecting the health of the body, then it's basically a purely materialist society. And it does not properly develop the mind, which is truth, and develop the soul, which is love, the love of God. And so that's the larger context. Now, in the smaller context, Chesterton points out that if the worship of health, if health becomes the ideal, that means that anyone who is not healthy is less than the ideal, and they can become expendable. And so the weak, the mentally ill, or the mentally handicapped, the old, the sick, the dying, the baby that is not completely healthy, they can all be sacrificed on the altar of health. And that's the philosophy that he's talking about. So we have to risk not being healthy in order to be alive. If we do everything, if all of our actions are motivated by how we can stay healthy and stay safe, we stop living. That's the general philosophy.
Yeah, I think that's the main point. We stay healthy, we lose the sense of actually good living. You know, you do not, and freedom, and to live in sort of liberty. In some way, a natural question that arises to me concerning this healthcare and worship of health is how then maybe should we confront this? For example, as Chestertonians and as Catholics confront different illnesses or diseases and so on. What do you think?
Well, I think we have to realize that, first of all, a situation like corona is an exception. It's not a usual thing. It is probably inevitable that something like this will happen every so often, and things are going to be everything's going to be strange during that time. But on a normal day, how do we deal with sickness and injury? And what do we do? We have to look at the Catholic Church and the historic Catholic Church as the model. Hospitals were invented by the Catholic Church, and they were done out of the virtue of, you take care of people who need help, just like you care for the poor and bury the dead and give comfort to those who need comfort. If people are sick, you try to get them well. If people are injured, you try to heal the injury. And this was done not out of a motivation of making money, but out of a motivation of serving the person who needs help. And that's why the hospitals were all run by religious orders originally. And that's our model. Now, in a situation where most of us we do not have the religious orders anymore to run the hospitals. One of the things that is starting to happen, and this is a very good distributist solution to this, is the idea of a health sharing cooperative where a group of people will, if someone is sick, they will pay, they'll pay for that person's health care.
That's what they have in Croatia, that
yeah.
kind of a healthcare system.
Yeah, but it's different from giving the money to a health insurance company, and then the insurance company decides how. I mean, I'm a member of a health cooperative where I pay each month. My check goes to the person who actually is sick. Wow. They tell me this is the person who needs it this month, and I write a check to that person. There's so every month I send it. Only 1 month out of the year do I send the check to the organization that administers everything. So that covers the administration cost. One check out of 12. The rest of the checks go directly to the healthcare, and that's different from a health insurance company where the money goes to the company and they build a giant glass tower with their name on it. Exactly. With the money that you're sending them. And
like
they tell
like
you,
in ancient Egypt with the pyramids.
Right. And they tell you how you're going to, you're going to deal with your, we'll give you this, but we won't give you that. And so the more bureaucracy and the more centralized it becomes, the less control you have over it. So the idea is keep it decentralized and keep it as direct as possible. Yeah. And that's the solution.
It's more personal, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
That's distributism. We actually have the same system in Croatia, that although the state is concerned with healthcare, but the system is basically the same. Every month you are giving for the healthcare system. And when somebody needs an operation, the state then transforms the money and so on. But in idea, the idea is very, very similar. But to me, when you were talking about how all the hospitals were created by the Catholic Church and were run by the religious orders, to me, one person who already immediately fell on my mind, that's Saint John Paul II, our great Pope. He was very sick in the last 10 years of his life, something like that. And he went through his illness, and I think that he somehow showed that to really go through pain and sickness, you have to have meaning.
Amen.
And concerning coronavirus, all this uncommon nonsense that we are going through, I think that the question of meaning is one of the fundamental questions and issues of today's world. So what do you think about how can we, as Chestertonians and people who are trying to spread the good news in Chestertonian way, should give this or should give meaning to other people?
Well, I think we try to convey one of Chesterton's most basic messages, which is the sense of wonder, to try to create that sense of wonder around us so that no one ever forgets that the glory of creation is something that we never contemplate enough. We have been given this gift of life, something we did not deserve. We did absolutely nothing to deserve the gift of life. So the only possible reaction, the only thing we can possibly do is be thankful. And G.K. Chesterton let thanks inform everything that he did. And that's why he says thanks is the highest form of thought. That is when you have the right perspective. As soon as you are thankful, you stop complaining, you stop being angry, you stop being impatient, and you still have a thirst for justice, but your thirst for justice is not selfish. It's not a selfish thirst for justice.
Yeah, I like this. I think that people today somehow they think that thanks and wonder is just some kind of a religious thing, you know. But you know, they try to box it into one very, very narrow context. But I think when we can look towards wonder and thanksgiving as some kind of also in the context of psychological benefits. You know, you mentioned you're not so grumpy, you're not impatient, you're not selfish anymore. I mean, those kind of things have thanksgiving and wonder have very practical consequences.
Amen.
When you were talking, I forgot to mention that the motto of our Chester Shock is only the living thing can go against the stream.
Oh yes, the living thing, yes, from the everlasting man.
Exactly, that's our.
It's one of those great lines from Chesterton that you absolutely never get tired of hearing or say, because it seems to be always true every day.
Yeah,
we have the temptation to be the dead thing that goes with the stream, and by being alive, that means we're going to have opposition. We're going to have the stream going against us always.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that wonder and thanksgiving can also shock people, you know,
yes.
Shake and shock. I've used this catchword as a catchphrase for our Chester Shock, shake and shock, you know, to really, you know, take them and shake them, you know, to wake them up, you know, to open their eyes and to really see that, as you said, that we did not do anything to deserve this life. Whatever kind of life we have, but in everything we can find good things that are worth living for. You know, that's and I think that in one way, how can we be the living thing that goes against the stream, is by being thankful and to really see that in everything there is this spark of our Lord in all of living things. Let me see, we have a few more minutes with our conversation, but I actually another question for you.
Okay.
You were talking about the home. I've heard that, and I also this thing fell into my mind that maybe after this incarceration in your own home, that they might be even more divorce. That a lot of couple that they're finally going to be at home. You know, they're finally going to not be at work or commuting or whatever. And that they're going to be at home, that they are finally going to meet each other, you know, really to feel them. So my question is, why do you think that the life is happening at home? Why is life happening at home and not inside home and not outside of your house?
So just so I understand the question, why is it supposed to be that way? Why is that the ideal?
Why do you think why the life is happening inside the home and not outside of the home?
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the main things that we do every day is we eat. Okay, we eat, and
so strange.
Yeah, it is strange, but we do it almost every day. It's amazing, and again, it goes back to this thing about health. If the only reason we are eating is for health purposes, eating becomes some kind of strange chore, and it is emptied of its pleasure. But Chesterton points out this other aspect of eating, and that is that it is a social event. It is It is the time that we talk and we laugh together. We tell each other what we're thinking. We do this around the table. And so the table becomes a sacred place in that sense. Just as we believe the altar in the church is also a table where we have the Last Supper. We share a feast with Christ and of Christ at a table when we go to Mass. And so that's one of the fundamental things that you do in your house. And again, in our society, people, they've stopped eating at home. They go off, they eat on the run, they eat in their car, and they've lost the sacred experience of eating together and having the shared meal. And so that's one of the things.
That's one of the, sorry to interrupt you, what's one of the first things that we're still in the Eastern time. That's one of the things that our Lord, first what he did was eating with his apostles when he came to visit them.
Yeah, good point. And what is Peter commanded to do? Feed my sheep, yes. Right? That's what he's commanded to do. And so there's that aspect. The other thing that happens in the house, in the home, is creativity. A lot of people have been in their homes during the incarceration, and of course, they're watching TV. They're watching all the movies that they think they have wanted to see, and they're considering that to be entertainment. Whereas if they limit their time watching a movie and start entertaining themselves, making their own songs, their own stories, their own poetry, and there is an active creative spirit that is not, it's just the opposite of the passive experience we have when we're watching TV or watching a movie. It is, you are actively engaging and uplifting the spirit. And that is happening. It certainly happened in my home. Yeah, we still watch movies, but that's not the focus of the day. Our children are playing the piano and the guitar, and they're making their own music. They're singing together, and making their own movies too. Wow. And that's just wonderful. And that sort of creativity is the same thing that Chesterton talked about. And we've started to learn to do other things for ourselves, things where we used to call some other professional in to do the things. We have started to do those things ourselves. And so we've been repairing and painting and fixing the house, which is a family project. Oh, and when I was talking about eating, we've been baking our own bread every day. Every day.
I wanted to ask you if you made pasta, because I know that you're.
We have. My wife is Italian, and we have made our own pasta. And she is Italian, but she grew up in Mexico, so she spent part of her life in Italy and part in Mexico. So yesterday, she made homemade tacos. She made the tortillas.
Lucky you.
Oh, I know. Lucky. I'm telling you. Yes.
No, I mean, when you're sharing your own experience and when you're talking about this view on family, Chesterton's view on family and home, it's very appealing. I think that viewers who are watching us, that they really feel attracted to this kind of life, to make from your home a fortress, to really build something authentic inside of your house. I think that's very appealing, in that people, whatever they do, they they feel drawn to this kind of thing, and I hope that that these are going to be some good fruits, and after this incarceration ends finally.
Amen.
Okay, I don't have any questions for you for now. Maybe
okay.
later.
Do any questions coming from any of the other Croatians? Do they have anything they want to ask me?
Just a second. They have somebody posted some questions on YouTube. Okay. Our friend from Justice, I forgot to say this for our viewers on YouTube, Marcus Marini. His wife and your wife are from the same city, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
That's a great coincidence.
How do these things happen? Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So our friend Dario from Rijeka, you met him actually at the first Chesterton Festival. You probably don't remember him, but he's a very interesting guy.
He was the handsome one, right?
Yes, the handsome one, the tall, blonde one. Yeah, that's him. Okay, so he asks you, what do you think would Chesterton do in a situation that the government closes his favorite pub or forbids him to go to a beer with his friend? That's the question. Just to answer briefly, I think Dario should read The Flying In.
Yeah, he should read The Flying In.
So you can answer if you...
Yeah, and I think that Chesterton would advocate a civil disobedience. He'd find a way. He was so intrigued when he came to America during Prohibition, and was drinking all this illegal liquor, illegal alcohol. He was absolutely fascinated by that. But he also noticed this when he came to America, which was he lectured at the University of Notre Dame, and the professors there were brewing their own beer.
Wow.
And they were distilling their own spirits.
Wow.
And Chesterton said, well, then maybe they should prohibit everything, and then people would do everything for themselves again.
Wow. I didn't know that. That's a great, wow, that's a great point. That's great information, actually. What do you think, that's my question. You've mentioned the civil disobedience, and what do you think would Chesterton, I know that they wanted to, they formed the Distributist League, but what's your opinion, would he ever support some movement or a political party? If we look at him today in this context, what kind of, in which way would he be active, so to say?
Yeah, well, I think that Chesterton, and I think you will probably be continuing to talk about this this topic in the other Chester Shock presentations. But the basic philosophy is, if we are going to have a revolution or a reformation, it has to be from the bottom up. It has to be done by people, not to people. So insofar as the government can do anything, Chesterton would argue they have to make laws that protect us from the government.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yes, grass communities. Exactly.
Yeah.
In grass communities. Okay. So we have another question from Lucia. She's the most beautiful Chestertonian in the world.
Oh yes, the beautiful.
Yes.
Look. Oh yes. Okay.
Although she's a lawyer, but I mean she's a Chestertonian lawyer. So I mean Marco is a lawyer. So
Marco's a lawyer too. Yeah, we can forgive. We
exactly.
can forgive Chestertonians for the vocations that God calls them to.
Yes, exactly. So, what are your views on connection between pursuing health and technology? Is medicine becoming an excuse for digitalizing everything?
Yeah, Chesterton, of course, his views on technology are very profound and prophetic. And he is not a Luddite. He's not against technology. He's only concerned that it just like health, it stays in its proper proportion and that it serves us rather than we serving it. As soon as we cannot survive without the machine, then the machine has become our master and we are serving the machine. And that's always the great balance that we have to continue to achieve.
When we are talking about technology, there always come to my mind this picture of a car that Chesterton mentions in The Outline of Sanity. I do not remember which essay, but when he says that we should look to technology and cars as a giant looks to his toys.
Yeah,
it's one thing. The second is that he has this, as I see it, mostly formalistic approach to technology. He says that cars are good to drive you from point A to point B, but when you arrive to a point B, let's say there's a beautiful landscape and a valley and a meadow, you want to build a home there, and you are going to dismantle the car and build tools for farming, you know. So he has this really interesting approach into let's say practical and mystical in the same.
That's right. That's perfect, Nikola. Practical and mystical. Very well said.
Thank you. I learned from the best, Dale. From the president of the Society of Gilbert Keitha Chesterton. I want to ask you about that, since I forgot to mention at the beginning, and I just remembered that you are the president of the Society of Gilbert Keitha Chesterton, and you are an official church, what we can say, official church apostolate
yes.
community. So can you say what's the difference between the American Chesterton Society and now the Society of Gilbert Keitha Chesterton as an apostolate of
sure.
people?
Yeah, we originally had the organization called the American Chesterton Society, which I was one of the founders of, and that operated for many years. And then the thing, and the American Chesterton Society really was a literary and social nonprofit organization where we just gathered together. We read Chesterton, we promoted Chesterton, and that was its function. But then our activities continued to grow, and one of the main ones was becoming associated with Chesterton Academy and beginning a group of schools that taught the Catholic faith and classical learning, with Chesterton as the model thinker. And as our education mission started to grow, we realized that evangelization was another of our missions, and so we decided we knew that we were part of the Catholic Church, and we decided, well, let's make it an official apostolate, so that we have the blessing of our bishop, and the church recognizes us as a Catholic organization, and we make our mission for education and evangelization and Catholic social teaching. But also by becoming this Society of Gilbert Keitha Chesterton, we will be the petitioner in Chesterton's cause for canonization.
Very good. You know, we have our club prayer, you know, and we include all of you, and especially you and the American, as we still call it the American Society.
And that's okay.
I mean, it's a great thing. I really have to congratulate you, because it seems to me like there was before and after. I think I can say that all of these big changes in the society happened when you came back from Croatia, from our festival.
Oh, it all makes sense, Nikola. All right.
I think you had a good time, at least in Croatia.
I did. Unforgettable. Unforgettable.
Yeah, I know that you're going to be back very, very soon into Croatia, and it's going to be even better.
Good.
I promise you that.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Just to say, Dario, the tall, handsome guy, He says, give me an answer, not a homework. So he probably meant reading The Flying In.
Yeah, read The Flying In.
Yeah, that's a great book. Okay, another question from Laura. I know her a little bit, but not so much. Okay, it's a pleasure to participate in this discussion. I have a question for Mr. Ahlquist. Do you think that we have started worshiping the health in this corona crisis? Or where and how to draw a parallel between real power of the virus and exaggerating in precautions?
Well, I think that's what the entire talk was about.
Yeah.
I guess I would just refer to what I did say. Yes, we are worshiping health, and the corona crisis has demonstrated that that's what we are doing. We think health is more important than worship, and so that's been demonstrated by the crisis. I think everything we've talked about is how to react against it. Now, what do we do next?
Yeah.
And I hope your sessions will continue to create that solution, that you'll all be the leaders, and everyone will look to Croatia to lead the world.
Well, we almost did in football.
Yeah, you almost did. It was so unfair. All right.
I mean, French people, they're all Masons, probably. So
yeah.
But
those were not even French people playing for the French team. Don't get me started. I don't care about football.
Don't say that YouTube is going to cancel us or something like that.
Okay.
Okay. All right. You said just brief two things. You mentioned worship. I think that wonder and thanksgiving leads to worship, because you have to worship somebody. You have to give glory to somebody, and that's the poetry, not mathematics, as Plato says. Poetry, the real poetry, is the fundamental of philosophy, theology, and our faith. And one last question. I think you're going to like this. What do you think? What is the weak spot in Chesterton's philosophy?
The weak spot in Chesterton's philosophy?
Yeah, his way of thinking.
Well, because he's such a defender of democracy and self-government, the weak spot is always going to be all of us. His great line, what's wrong with the world? I am. Yeah. He does take a very positive view of what we are capable of doing. He always knows that sin could spoil everything.
Yeah.
And the weak spot is the same. It's the same weak spot that the Catholic Church emphasizes: free will. And free will means you're going to get bad decisions along with the good decisions.
So we are the weak spot.
Yeah, we are the weak spot.
Wow, I like that.
Okay.
Okay, we have come to an end. Thank you, Dale, for this very, very pleasant conversation. It was great to have you back in Croatia, although virtually.
It was good to be back in Croatia. Thank you, Nikola, for inviting me.
I hope, well, thank you for answering the call 2 times. I'll never forget the first time you answered the call to come to Croatia. It was just great and hilarious in the same time. So thank you. If you like to say any last word of encouragement for the people who are watching us.
Well, we certainly have great solidarity, and I'm glad that we're all part of this movement to bring common sense back to the world, and that you are going to play a great key in helping elevate Chesterton to the altar of sainthood. And I thank you for the role you're playing in that. But in the meantime, I just look forward to the times that we will be able to spend together. And if you feel free to reach me anytime through chesterton.org.
Thank you, Dale, and God bless you. And we continue to pray for you and for Chesterton's beatification ultimately.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
evo, ja se zahvaljujem svima vama koji ste nas gledali. Vidimo se za tjedan dana u isto vrijeme. Predavači su Joseph Pierce i Joe Grabowski. Tema je, mi imamo rješenje na sve probleme. We have the solution to all problems. Welcome to distributism. Nadam se da vam bilo zanimljivo i ugodno. Ako vam se sviđa ovo što radimo i ako želite da još više stvari radimo i da vam još više ovakvih sadržaja donesemo i da jednostavno promijenimo skupan svijet, pozivam vas da nas donirate, da nam pomognete u našem radu. Posjetite stranicu Gilbert HR, našu Facebook stranicu Gilbert Keitha Chesterton. Evo i na našem YouTube kanalu imate mnoga još predavanja, između ostalog Dale koje je držao u Hrvatskoj kad je bio. Evo, znači za svaku donaciju koju nam dadete dobite neki poklon od nas, ručno kovane stvari, križeve, ne znam, tu nešto fali. Mislim, možete s nama na planinarenje ako baš želite, nešto ćemo organizirati, evo, ove naše torbe, majice, mnoge stvari još spremamo. Također posjetite stranicu posvećenu Nursiji, znači pivo koje nas sponzorira, naši prijatelji benediktinci iz Nursije. Malo treba da čita, eto, dođite nam biranursija.com, posjetite i pogledajte. I to je to manje više. Mi se vidimo za tjedan dana. Pratite nas preko društvenih mreža, na Facebooku Gilbert Keitha Chesterton, na YouTube kanalu i na Gilbert HR. Naći ćete tamo puno dobrih i zanimljivih stvari, vjerujem, i pročitati nešto i evo, svakako nas podržite i pratite dalje. Evo, toliko za sada od Hrvatskog čestrnjanskog kluba. Bog vas blagoslovio i vidimo se.